Okay, let's get started. So please take a moment to click the subscribe button, also the bell, and all for notifications so that you're updated on all of our new episodes, including live broadcasts. I want to talk to you a little bit about China. China's been in the news a lot lately, and really most of the news about China has been what I consider bad news. Now, we've been broadcasting on China since really the Chinese New Year when the COVID-19 pandemic originated in Wuhan, China. And at that particular point in time, there was quite a bit of allegations mounting that the virus, in fact, originated at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. As we know, there was talk about it starting at the wet market in Wuhan, China, which is really walking distance from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, under quite suspicious circumstances, with a lot of allegations from America and other nations that the pandemic actually did originate, in fact, in Wuhan, China, and that China was somehow, well, Wuhan Institute of Virology is right there, so you can connect the dots. Now, that plus the fact that if you look at the impact that has had on you and on me and on everybody around the world, it has had a profound and devastating impact, and there's just no question about that. Furthermore, if you look at what just happened in Hong Kong with the Hong Kong national security law and the fact that China can now arrest those in Hong Kong who speak against the government, essentially. In fact, even if you're a tourist that's critical of China, and I would say this video alone, as well as others, probably puts me on a list of being critical of China, I better not go to Hong Kong, because there's a chance that even if I'm transiting on Cathay Pacific through the airport, I could be arrested based on being critical of China, and the penalty is up to life in prison. So that just devastates Hong Kong, whether you live there, whether you want to be a tourist there, or whether you just are transiting through Hong Kong as a hub. You've got to be careful. That's another action by China. Now we look at the fact that America has just closed the Chinese Consulate in Houston. Now, that is a really big deal. Not only was it closed, but the compound was raided by U.S. federal officials after the closure. And of course, there were documents in the courtyard being burned. China officials wouldn't allow firefighters to put out the fire. Obviously, they were destroying intelligence and other documents, and honestly, what I would probably consider evidence. So it is quite a sketchy situation there. So we have the Houston Consulate in China closed by America. Of course, there's retaliation from China, which America would have certainly anticipated, and which of course did happen. So essentially, the allegations are that China was spying not only on the American government, but also on private companies in America, and also on American citizens. So those are very serious allegations. And apparently Houston was the hub from which China was mounting this intelligence gathering against American citizens, against American companies. I'm sure there was corporate espionage going after innovations, as the United States government has alleged against China, innovations and technology in private companies. So if you're the CEO of a major publicly traded company, could be Tesla, could be Apple, Microsoft, or any major company out there, Google, etc., who knows what successful surveillance, spies on premises, or if it was all remote based. But in any case, China has been in the news in a very bad way for a very long time. And a combination of the fact that this pandemic started on the Chinese New Year in Wuhan, China, the fact that America is the country that's affected far worse than any other country in the world. When you look at the number of infections in China, which is a huge country, being so small compared to the number of infections in America, when you look at the number of fatalities in China being so small compared to the number of fatalities in America, and the fact that China and America are in this essentially what amounts to, well, it's economic conflict in terms of the trade war that's been going on, that's been quite bitter. And all things considered, why is it that the worst suffering country in the world from the virus that started in Wuhan, China, is America? And it's got to make you think, is there something to this? Now, I don't want to speculate too much, but is it possible that America was somehow targeted with this pandemic? Well, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But what we do know is it started in China, and America's worse affected. We do know China's been spying on American companies, citizens, and the government from that Houston Consulate and probably other places as well. These are things that we know. We do know that China has essentially dealt a major blow against Hong Kong with the Hong Kong National Security Law. And not only that, but neighbors of China are experiencing all types of aggressive maneuvers by China lately as well. So personally, I will not be transiting through Hong Kong. I will not be going to China. I don't know about you, but it is time to really, personally, I think that the U.S. did the right thing in closing that consulate. I think that they should probably, China retaliated. Why would they retaliate? We did the right thing. They're spying. They got caught. We closed that consulate. They retaliate. I personally believe we should probably close another consulate. We should keep closing consulates. If there is a full-blown escalation of this between U.S. and China, of course there is a price to be paid. Of course there's an economic price to be paid. Personally, I'm willing to suffer financially to have justice served and to have what's right happen. And I would say what's right in this, there should be financial reparations from the damage done by this pandemic to the world. Look at how much this has cost the world. China has lent money to countries around the world, trillions of dollars. Roughly 5% of the world's GDP is owed to China as debt by other countries. Guess who's paying that debt? Whatever country you're in. If you're in America, if you're in the Philippines, if you're in any country in the world that has a debt to China, and there are many countries in the world that are in great debt to China, we're talking trillions of dollars. You are paying for that when you pay your taxes. So we are basically, all of us that are working hard and paying taxes are paying China the debt that our countries borrowed from China. So we owe trillions of dollars to China. That's the bottom line. And China has caused trillions of dollars in damage to the world economy, to personal economies, to your personal economy, to your personal bank account, to your personal wallet and your job. You have been damaged by this pandemic. People have lost their lives. People have lost their loved ones. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their money. And so, yet we continue to pay our taxes. And a lot of that money, not all of it, but a percentage of it is going to repay this massive debt that your country, that my country owes China. We're in debt to China. And yet this pandemic that started in China, that China didn't, at the very least, they weren't transparent about it. They understood the problem and they weren't transparent about it, and they didn't disclose material facts. And at the very least, negligence creates liability, and liability for this amounts to trillions of dollars. So let's erase that debt. Let's erase that debt to China. Let's stop having our tax dollars going to repay that debt to China. Let's just erase the debt to China. Why should we pay when China has essentially cost the world trillions of dollars? At the very minimum, far more than that. We're talking lives have been lost. So that's the first step, I would say. But should there be an escalation in terms of, I'm not talking about physical conflict, I'm talking about financial, economic, consulates closed. I think America should keep closing those consulates. I think China should bear a consequence for what's happened with the pandemic, for being caught spying on Americans and companies and technology. And that's what's happening in America. So my question for you is, if you're not in America, what's happening in your country? Is the same thing happening in your country? Are your trade secrets, are your private companies that are innovating, that are working on the vaccine, that are working on better batteries and better software and new technology, are your secrets being essentially taken as well by China through spying efforts and utilized in China to undermine innovations in your own country? Is it just America? Probably not. Is it affecting you? It probably is. What it does when trade secrets are stolen from US companies is it takes jobs away from people in America, and instead it creates jobs in China. So when China takes trade secrets from your country, from innovations within your country, from private companies, and they duplicate that in China, that essentially creates jobs in China around that new technology, and it eliminates jobs in your country that would have been exporting that technology to China, with them being a consumer. Instead, China creates jobs and is building upon that technology internally. So China is just in the news in a very bad way. I am so utterly disappointed in what has happened with China and Hong Kong, China and America, China and the world because of the pandemic. that I think there has to be a consequence, and I'm willing to suffer myself over that consequence just to see what's right happen. So that's it for this broadcast. Please take a moment to click subscribe, the bell and all. I hope to see you next time. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.